Hello, everybody. I'm Sam, and this is my list of the top 20 for the 20th century. This is both the artists and their respective albums. And if the artist didn't have any albums do, they'll have to have a compilation will do. Since the album is a 20th century creation, I'll get into it later. Let's start us off with Robert Johnson. So, Robert Johnson originally released on 78s. No real album there. So, this is a compilation of Robert Johnson. So, he is our standard for the 20s. Anything before 1910 did not make it onto this list. Obviously, they're not albums, and how many of you can name artists from them that have stood the test of time? Not many. So, Robert Johnson. Second up, we have Woody Guthrie with Dust Bowl Ballads. Now, this is a different cover, this is a different release, but it's still Dust Bowl Ballads by Woody Guthrie. His first concept album and probably the first real album. Originally released on 78s in a book, like old 78s were. That's what it's great. It's Woody Guthrie. I can't really tell you. Inspired one of the later people on our list, Bob Dylan. Spoiler. Next up, we have the Carter Family, originators of country music. Can the circle be unbroken? This is our stand-in for the Carter Family, since again they were released on 78. It's very influential. Next up, we're skipping to the 50s. With Elvis. This is Elvis Presley's first album. Of course, singles on 45s were the big thing back then. This is an actual studio album by Elvis. Blue Suede Shoes, I Got a Woman, Tutti Frutti. I mean, it doesn't have as big hits like Jailhouse Rock or anything, but it's early Elvis. This is on RCA after he was on Sun Records. Let's move up to another one, Rock and Roll. If it wasn't called Rock and Roll, it'd be called Chuck Berry. That's a John Lennon quote right there. So we have Chuck Berry right here. Of course, this is a comp of his singles. Influential artist. Probably one of the most influential of all time. Next up, we have jazz representative here, John Coltrane. Love Supreme. Great album, great jazz album. It's on blue vinyl right here, not an original release, but it's a great album. Next up, we have Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. We have representatives from most genres here. So, really first band to call themselves Bluegrass. I'm not sure if this is a comp or an actual studio album, but again, a lot of releases on singles and stuff at this period we're still at. Next up, big one. This is the one that inspired this video because of its vast collection and vast genre portfolio. White Album. The Beatles. This is our Beatles representative. Arguably one of the most important bands of all time. I'm not going to go into it. People have already said it. But Beatles, White Album, just all around, very eclectic album, and it's what inspired this list. Next up, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Amazing folk album, just a pinnacle, really. And, I should have started with the next album on this list, but I didn't pay too much attention to order when it comes to this, aside from time frame. But here we go. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Great harmonies. You don't even have to say that anymore. But the times they are changing. Bob Dylan. It's Bob Dylan. Great protest songwriter, even though he probably wouldn't say he was. Just great voice, great songwriting, all the same. Next up, another folkie, Joanie Mitchell. Probably one of the most beautiful voices of all time. One of the, just in terms of both voice and songwriting. and just soul. It's Joanie Mitchell Blue. My favorite songs are out here. California probably is one of my favorite songs of all time. Next up, we have Hendrix. Electric Ladyland. I'm not going to say anything because a lot has been said. He's just appearing on this list. You know, you can say greatest guitarist of all time. You could. Brian Eno. Had to get some Eno on this list because just his production. And this is the first album that is called Ambient. It's a very influential album. I'm going to take a shot every time I say that. Rewatch this video and take a shot and you'll probably die. But very influential album. It's beautiful art. Beautiful music. Very simple. It's ambient. Next up. Alright. Now, next up is something that wasn't big at its time but has stood the test of time. It has even gathered a bigger following. Nick Drake, Pink Moon. This album sounds like it could be recorded yesterday. It's that good. It's his quality, and it's just beautiful. Dick Drake, very tragic life, very tragic story, but there's a lot of soul there. Bada boom, Led Zeppelin 3. Chose Led Zeppelin 3 because it's my favorite. It's the Led Zeppelin representative here. And it just shows, you know, crazy cover design that really experimented during the 70s. Things like Sticky Fingers from the Stones. Stuff like that. Just, or the Banana cover for Velvet Underground. And just the music of Zeppelin itself, too. Next up, Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen changed the game. Really, said he wouldn't amount to anything his guitar teacher said, and he really showed him wrong. He has his own style, his own voice, and just, you know, it's great. It's rock and roll. It's hard rock, you know. It's driving. Next up, Aja, whatever you want to say, whatever I want to say at the moment. Steely Dan. Nobody can beat Steely Dan in their own game. Great jazz fusion, not yacht rock, I'll say that. Just a great album. I could sing Deacon Blues in my sleep. Next up, Paul Simon. One of the great American songwriters right here next to Dylan. I chose Graceland as the representative for Paul Simon. I could have chose Simon & Garfunkel. I could have chose his whole discography. But I chose Graceland because it is just a beautiful African-tinged album. And it's just Paul Simon at his best, I'd say. And last but not least, we have Metal with Metallica, Kill 'Em All. This is one on Megaforce. This is a representative from Metallica and a representative from the 80s, other than Paul Simon. Yeah, they're go no further than this in terms of year. Yeah, this is a good album. It's the one my dad picked up when he saw the cover and he was like, "What is that?" And he it sent him on his metal and rock and roll journey. So here's Metallica, Kill 'Em All. Had to get that. I had to get some metal in there, and there's my list of top 20 for the 20th century. It could be the album itself, or it could be the artists. Well, it is the artist. And, well, I said what I wanted to say during the video. I'll say it again. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.